Okay, so we are going to cover the next topic. Okay, hypothesis test. Okay, so hypothesis seems to be a little bit challenging for you to understand, but it's a very simple concept. Okay, if you go in depth, okay, and I'll go through that. Okay, so here also some of the theoretical part, which is seems to be a dry subject, but end of the class we'll have some other interesting topic also. So don't sleep. Okay, be active. Okay, right. So pad comparison test. Okay, so here we are talking about some of the comparison tests what we are maintaining here. Pad comparison test. Okay, the hypothesis testing. Okay, this mostly this hypothesis testing we'll use in the analysis phase. Okay, analyze phase. See what we'll do here is, see for example, we'll take one scenario and then we'll try to create a hypothesis there. Okay, see for example, I'll take one example which everyone can understand very easily. Okay, one courier company delivers more consistently than another company. Okay, this is a hypothesis, right? What this mean? I'm creating one statement based on the problem. Okay, for example, I'm taking one scenario from our projects. Okay, what I'm saying is I'm creating a project saying that the payment posting is doing, every time payment posting is doing correct work compared to all other process. That's my statement. Okay, that is called my hypothesis. Okay, so what we are going to do is setting up a null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. For example, what I'm saying, my payment posting process is always good. That is my statement. So now I have to create alternate statement saying that my payment posting is only problem for my process. Like that, we'll create an alternate hypothesis. There should be only two activity. One, my null hypothesis should be good, or my alternate hypothesis should be good. So what I'm going to do, by based on my data, I have to run and then analyze, and then I will either select my null hypothesis or I will select my alternate hypothesis. So it cannot be two, cannot be same, right? It cannot be true. For example, either my process, payment posting process is good or it is not good. That's what I need to finalize based on the data what I have. So this called your null hypothesis, and opposite to that is called alternate hypothesis. Okay, value should not be mutually exclusive. That's what we are talking about. Okay, both cannot be the same. It should be a mutually exclusive and should not be overlap also, right? Either it should be good or bad. That's called your hypothesis. Okay, figure out the test consideration. Okay, when you are doing any null hypothesis, there are two important value to figure it out. Okay, one is the alpha value, second one is p value. Okay, if the p value is anything is lesser than 0.5, then you can consider that as a good hypothesis or good method to consider. Okay, this p and alpha value, once you we'll go in depth if you get the mini tab. Okay, that will be easy for you. I'll try to explain with the Excel, okay, in the coming classes. And if you are understanding, it's well and good. Otherwise, the mini tab will be a very easy tool to show you the alpha and the p value. Okay, they will give you the access for mini tab. Actually, I lost my access. Otherwise, I would have been shown you the mini tab. It is not with me. And mini tab is an easy tool. If you put the data, it will give the clear cut information. Okay, that's what all the black belt people will use. Okay, and hypothesis test for the pair comparison. The same thing. We have the two tests. Okay, one is pair comparison using t-test and the pair comparison value. Okay, the data has been paired through the same set of subjects. See, there should be a set of data which should be paired together. Then only we can use this paired comparison. So what do you mean by that? See, for example, I'll take one scenario. Okay, see, we want to take a quarterly test results for a different class. What is the class? New medication to reduce their blood pressure. Okay, for example, we take two set of people and we just want to understand whether the blood pressure is reducing based on the medication what we are giving to them. So here is a link is their height and the or the people and the blood pressure is a paired comparison based on the new medication is a test, right? So there should be two data to compare it, and data should be organized in pairs. Okay, say for example, a person name, for example, person A and the blood pressure. That should be always a paired methodology. By that we can compare both. Okay, data should be organized in the pairs, and number of defects produced before and after installing the new machine. See, for example, what we are going to do is, for we will take a sample. Okay, we will take one, for example, 10 people we will take, and then we will measure their blood pressure. That is one pair sample. The same people, we will give a medication and then we will check the blood pressure again. Okay, that will give a difference. Okay, whether it's a pad, what is the improvement happen, or what is a reduction in the performance happen, that will give a clear cut instruction. Okay, so that we are doing it. And the same way, I put one more example. For example, I'm putting one new machine. Okay, how the process previously happened after installing the new machine, how it is improved. See, for example, quality, they are auditing and then they are bringing one new process into the place. See, for example, you are doing one Six Sigma project and you are trying to bring one methodology to the process. Okay, and you compare, okay, how it performed previously, how it has happened now. See, for example, pre-billing team we introduced, right? Before the pre-billing, what is the percentage of denial, and after the pre-billing team, what is the percentage of denial we are getting or rejections. You take that and then you start comparing. Okay, that's called your paired comparison t-test. Okay, and the test, see, for example, sometime the variance will be different, and the variance number you have to take the F distribution table. Okay, for example, this will be covered in detail, okay, when once you go to the next level. So based on this one, then if your number of for example, df2 and df1 is comparing 1 then you have to take this value as your F distribution table. It's similar to your log table, right? When we use in 10th or 12th. Okay, the same way you have to compare and then take this value. Okay, that one thing. And then two sample tests also the same thing. When the two sample test parameter, mainly the F distribution table, we'll take it from here. Okay, so I'm not going in depth on this because it's only for your knowledge and you will get that in the next course. Okay, hypothesis test for a proportion. Okay, so what is the proportion we have to understand in the hypothesis? Okay, we are not always dealing with the continuous data. Understand hypothesis testing. See why the hypothesis is important. Okay, for example, if you are taking any all the data, if it is a number, we can go with the only with the statistical methodology we can complete it. Okay, sometime it is not going to be a continuous data. There will be a lot of discrete data you need to analyze. So for that we are mainly using this hypothesis testing. Okay, data should be binary, such as it would be yes or no or pass or fail. Okay, these type of data we may require the hypothesis testing to finalize it. Okay, samples are random and tests are independent. Okay, this is some of the challenges in the data collection. Okay, which we cannot come to a direct conclusion. That's what we are taking the hypothesis. Okay, so if you take the chi-square, okay, there's a null hypothesis and then alternate hypothesis. As I discussed with you, what you are taking is a null hypothesis. Opposite to that is called alternate hypothesis. Either this or that you need to select. You can do it by the chi-square or you can do it by the ANOVA or one-way ANOVA test. These are all some of the methods which we can do for the hypothesis test. Okay, I know you have a lot of question on the hypothesis, but it's not explained in detail in the green belt, and you can go with the practical, then you can understand it very clearly. Okay, again, hypothesis testing and the test for means. Okay, so here null and alternate hypothesis what I covered, right? So the null hypothesis we call that as a H0 or H0 we'll call it as, and the alternate hypothesis we'll call it as a H alt, right? There's a two way we are calculating it. Testing really the two goals we are going to test it, and we are going to see that whether it is our project is favoring the null hypothesis or a alternate hypothesis, that we need to cover. Okay, this I'll put it in the path. Okay, you just go and then read it. See, you compare both. Okay, what's your text message says and what is the PPT says. You will get some understanding. I'm 100% sure you won't understand everything thoroughly, but you have to know about it. If anything they are asking in the qualified test, you should know what is hypothesis testing. Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, this is very important. Okay, the confidence level and the error type. Okay, see, whatever we are discussing now, taking the measurement and then taking a hypothesis, all other thing, there is a error also we are accepting. Okay, whatever I am calculating, there may be some error, right? See, for example, the GCR, what we are calculating, right? So GCR, we are saying the projected GCR. We know very well sometimes we are not able to meet out because there is some error in the process also. So we are not saying to the management saying that whatever I'm calculating there may be some error, but we know that, right? See, sometime what is happening is all my charges is not billed out. Okay, sometime we are not billing it, it is on hold, but we are calculating the entire charge into our GCR calculations. Okay, these are all some of the error. I just want to give some example. That's what I'm referring that to. See here, if you take that, there are two types of error. One is type 1 error, which is called alpha risk. Type 2 error, which is called beta risk. So whenever you take any of your analysis, there will be a two type of error is available there. Okay, so what do you mean by alpha risk? Okay, see, for example, you are auditing your process. Okay, you think the product is defective Okay, when it is good. See, for example, we will take a interview process. Okay, you reject the candidate saying that he's not good, but actually he is good. Okay, the problem is he's not able to express at that time. That may be the reason he's not performing well, but we are rejecting. That's called your alpha risk. The beta risk is different. Okay, you may select a candidate which is not a good candidate, but we are selecting. Okay, this mainly because of the product is defective, but it is not rejected. We are selecting that guy. So whenever you do any of the process, we may come across alpha risk or a beta risk. Both is possible, right? So if you do any alpha risk, what happen? You are losing the good product, right? For example, you'll take a product. Okay, there is a water bottle. Product is a defective. Okay, but it's a good product, but you are rejecting it. It is going for the scrap. Then it's you are wasting the money. And the second thing is, if the product is defective and you are not rejected and it went for the marketing, what will happen? It will come back to you saying that there is a defect in the product. Then it will go for a product maintenance and all the warranty replacement. Everything will come because of the beta error. Okay, any question here? Alpha risk and the beta risk. This is very important in your life. So how to avoid this risk? It's based on the experience, right? How we are doing the process continuously, that will give a heads up how to remove this kind of errors. Okay, power and sample size. See what happened when we say about the error, the people tend to take a lot of sample, right? See, that's what we are doing. When we are doing a quality analysis, everyone tend to ask them to do 100% sample. Why we are doing it? To avoid the error, right? If they do 100% error, we can avoid the error. That's what is happening. But practically, that is not feasible, right? See, we have to take a right sample size, okay, not the 100% sample. See, to define a right sample size, this is a formula, okay? MOE is equal to Z alpha divided by square root of N. Okay, Z is a critical value, okay, which is defined for your particular process, and sigma is a standard deviation, and N is a sample size. Okay, this will give you the MOE. Okay, so this particular thing will give a clear-cut instruction. What is the sample size you have to take to identify your population and the sample size? Okay, the population difference. Understand what is the difference between the two population is a bigger difference. For example, power of our test will increase. So you think that your sample is increasing, going to reduce your error. It's not going to be. The variability. Okay, for example, if you're measuring the two different population, your variability will always be there. And you have to consider your alpha level. As I told you, the alpha level will vary from 0.01 to 0.05. And the common value is 0.05. This will define your alpha value. You just know about it. What is a sample size, how to define it. You will get the detailed information later. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, Ji.
No. Okay. Anyone asking any question? I had some voice.
Okay,
sir, fine.
I have clarification regarding further.
Yeah, a little bit louder. I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, sir. So you stated like the Z is a critical value.
Yes, Z is a critical value.
So which means if it's error comes under the same parameter, it will be goes to the critical value, right?
Correct, correct. See, what we need to do before you take a sample size, you have to finalize your critical value. Say, for example, we are taking any process, right? For example, I am finalizing 98% is my critical value. Then your 98% will be your Z value. See, some process I may need 100% value. So your critical value will be 100%. Based on your critical value, you have to finalize your Z value there.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Right.
Okay, sir.
So process of hypothesis testing. Hypothesis okay. See, establish the hypothesis. Okay, how we are going to create a hypothesis. So as I told you, null hypothesis is creating a rule or creating a comment of your process. Okay, is that parameter of the interest are equal and there is no change or no difference. See, the null hypothesis is going to talk about what is existing. That's all. It is not going to do anything else. As I told you, the payment posting team is doing a good job. That is the actually available. I am taking that into a null hypothesis. Alternate is exactly opposite to that. Okay, and the test consideration. Okay, what we need to do is there is a select appropriate test statistical based on what we are trying to test. Okay, see, for example, if you're creating a null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, you have to select a test to prove your null hypothesis, right? And make sure that we are identifying the appropriate alpha value. Based on your test, alpha value you have to identify and need to determine the sample size. Okay, that's what we discussed last time. Okay, sample size, you have to finalize it and conduct a sampling representative samples. Okay, the sample taking we discussed earlier, right? How to take the sample, random sampling or stratified sampling kind of thing. You have to identify which sample you are going to select and how you are going to run this particular test. Okay, based on this test consideration, we are going to do the test statistics. One is the p-value and the z statistics and the t statistics. Okay, and know what type of test you are going to using. And if it is a z statistics, if a sample is more than 30, you are going to use z. And if a sample size is less than 30, you are going to use the t testing. Okay, z testing or a t testing, which you are going to use. And as I told you, the p-value is important. Okay, calculate the critical value of the p-value. Always when we consider if a p-value is less than 0.05, your value is good to proceed. Otherwise, it will be a rejected one. See, for example, result interpretation. P-value is lesser than your alpha value, then test is significant. Reject our null hypothesis. This is a rule. As I told you, right? How you are going to reject your null hypothesis and select your alternate. This is the value. When you compare your p-value with alpha value, when the p-value is lesser than alpha, you are going to reject your null hypothesis. What is null hypothesis? What is actually existing? That is your null hypothesis. Okay, if the p-value is more than alpha, then you fail to reject the null hypothesis. That means what? We are going to accept the null hypothesis. So there are one or two-tailed hypothesis testing. Okay, after you do this, all this plotting, it will come as a one-tailed or two-tailed hypothesis testing. This is a two-tailed hypothesis testing, and then critical value method. Comparing the two, our test statistics and our critical value. Based on that, you have to come back with your critical value method. As I told you, the p-value, it should be greater than alpha value. Then we will reject or accept. Okay. So in this slide, there are 2 points. One, we are doing a hypothesis testing. Null hypothesis is what is existing is a null hypothesis. Alternate is opposite to that. Okay, when you will reject your null hypothesis, when your alpha value is lesser than, your p value is lesser than alpha, then you have to reject. Okay, keep that alone. And coming to test statistics, there is a two type of test. One is z test and the t test. Z, if a sample is more than 30 and your t is less than 30. These are all the very important point to remember from here. Okay, all other things are, you just go through the document and you have some idea on it. Okay, here one sample test for means. Okay, there as I discuss here. Okay, we are discussing about z and the t. Okay, that's what we are trying to explain here. See, one sample t test and the z test. Sample size is greater than 30, we'll go for z test. Okay, population variation is unknown. Our sample size is less than 30, we'll go for a t test. And this is a flow chart we had given when you have to select the z and the t. Okay, you just go through that. It's very simple one. The formulas and all, you need not remember it. Okay, if you go to Minitab, it will automatically throw the value. You just understand what is that and how we are going to use it. That will be sufficient for this. Okay. See, we discussed about two sample t tests the same way. Two sample also the same thing. Okay, if your supply or the mean is coming here, then you can put it here and then you can go through that. Okay, this also I'm not going to go in depth. Okay, it will be too boring and trying to explain in the online class. That would be a challenge. You just go through this and then if any clarification on it, we will discuss. Most probably this all will not covered, will not come in your green belt. Okay. Any question so far? So far, what we covered is you should get the basic understanding of the hypothesis, first one, and difference between null and alternate. Okay, and the types of error is important. And when you are doing a hypothesis testing, so how we are going to select your sample size? Okay, that formula is very important. And here the test consideration, z test and the t test is important. And when you will reject your null hypothesis. Okay, these are all the very critical from this particular topic. Okay. So we'll move to the next one. So far, any question, guys? தலையும் புள்ள காலும் புள்ளியா இல்ல ஏதாவது புரியுதா ஏதாவது கொஞ்சம் சிம் 2ல 1ல கூப்பிடுறியா? Hello, everyone is here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Present. Okay. Fine. Right. So we'll go again. Okay. Multivariation chart. Okay. See, என்ன ப்ராப்ளம்னா many of them will not accommodate for your healthcare. அதான் பிரச்சனை அதுல. Right. In depth நம்ம உள்ள போய் சிக்ஸ் சிக்மா எல்லாமே படிப்போம். ஆனா இது வந்து most of some of the parameters we won't use it for our healthcare. Okay. This may very useful for the operation side or some other process. It will be very useful. But we won't go in depth in this aspects. That's the only challenge. But we have to learn, right? If, for example, you decided to move out of healthcare and then going to some other process, and you say that I already got my Six Sigma black belt or a green belt, obviously they will ask these kind of questions, right? That's what we are trying to cover in depth. Okay, right. So multivariation analysis. So here what we are trying to do is this is a variation with from the multiple factors. Okay, multiple input factor. This is very important. Okay, so I can say that this you can implement into your charge value to identify how your output is varying based on your input. See, for example, I'll tell you a scenario. So we covered a scenario called y is equal to f of x, right? Based on the charge, your collection is going to be decided. Okay, that's what we finalize. Y is equal to f of x. See, the f of x, is there any variation is available? That's what we are discussing here. Okay, f of x is what? Charge. Charge is not the same, right? The charge will vary by payer, charge will vary by the CPT code, charge will vary by your reference doctor. For example, I'm talking about the CRL or CND. Okay, based on the referring doctor, your charges may differ. Is a collectible or non-collectible, that will differ based on your input. See, for example, I have multiple inputs. Okay, how I'm trying to understand? Okay, we are trying to understand how they impact the outcome of the process by using this multiple input factor. Okay, and the pattern of variation, multivary chart, okay, is very useful by showing this pattern of the variation. See what this we are going to cover. Okay, see, for example, you take a scenario. Okay, I'll take CRL as an example. Okay, this month I'm getting a sample from BCBS and Cigna and UHC. I'm taking only these three sample and I'm comparing with my output. For example, I know the BCBS is not paying because of my referring doctor is variable and that is my impacting factor. Then I have to put a multivary chart to identify, for example, in which place, for example, I am taking my charge. Okay, BCBS of Texas. If I get a lot of claim from BCBS of Texas, my output or the collection is increasing, right? That is my parameter, right? Then I have to understand how many is coming from my own state. Okay, where I can improve my revenue. Like that, you have to come to a conclusion. For that, the multivary chart will be very helpful. Okay, identify the relationship and the gain insight where the variation is coming from. See, you know very well your variation is coming from your charges, right? And you understand which charge is going to give you the better results. Okay, see, that's what we are trying to incorporate that into multivariable chart. And you identify the source of variation. So here our source of variation is very simple, right? It is by payer or by CPT code or by for example, if you take ABA by session timings. Okay, for example, we are billing all the session after crossing the MEU limit, right? The charges will be more. Are we going to collect? No, that's it depends on the variability of our input. Okay, that's what we are trying to cover here. And reducing the variation, the input variation need to be reduced. You see, for example, if I know that BCBS of I'll take anyone, Ohio. Okay, I'm not going to collect at all. Then we have to go back to the to our client and then say that don't accept any sample from Ohio BCBS because we are not going to make any payment. That's a reducing the variation type here. Okay, and steps in creating the sample plan. How we are going to create a sample plan? Determine the scope. What is your scope? I have to improve my collection and set out our time frame. What is your time frame? I will do this analysis for 3 months, or I will go back to my old data for 1 year, and then I will give my accurate data to the collection or to my client. That we have to finalize it. Okay, look at some of the initial sample to make sure that you get accurate information. So here the sample collection is not our problem, right? Because we already have our historical data. From there, you can come up with the. Okay, so what is a variation in the Six Sigma? Okay, the positional variation. So what is positional variation? Typically variation occurs between the same part. See, for example, I have 5 parts in my process. Okay, If the process is, for example, 1 2 3 4 5, instead of that I have 3 2 1, what is the position? Because of the position change, what is the variation is going to cause? That's called positional variation. And then cyclic variation, part to part variation. For example, charge entry is my first process. From the charge entry, it is going to the claim retransmission. Okay, that's a part to part variation, how it is differing between multiple parts. Okay, temporal variation, shift to shift variation. For example, the same process is done by two different shift. Okay, for example, I have charges are huge charges I am having. Okay, I am not able to complete. We'll take one batch. For example, payment posting, one shift people, for example, morning shift people is coming back and then creating one batch. They are not able to complete that particular thing, and then that is completed by the second shift. What is the variation is happening based on the shift to shift people variance? Okay, that's a three type. One is position variation, and the one is cycle variation. Third one is temporal variation. These are all the three types of variations. And correlation and the correlation coefficient. This is what we covered 2 weeks before. So I told you, right?